Welcome, everyone, to the last morning's session. After the session, we'll be enjoying a nice lunch. But before that, we're here to talk about the Zero Paper Challenge. And this is the dream, but the reality, as we know, is still rather far away. Especially in our interactions with bureaucratic institutions, there seems to be a penchant for paperism. Paperism bringing forms in person, even forms that we fill out online. It's happened to me personally. Agencies of the government that have online forms ask me to bring them in person, to present them in person, and it seems awfully inconvenient. It wastes time, it wastes resources. We're here today to learn from the best and to talk about what's being done to promote as little paperwork as possible, to make our businesses and our lives as efficient as possible. We have an illustrious panel gathered here today. Starting from the left, we have Mr. Dejan Cvetkovic, whom you may have heard this morning in this morning's presentation. He is a regional technology officer with Microsoft and works with policymakers on implementing technological solutions. Next to him, we have Mr. Andrea Servida, who is head of a task force at the European Commission's Directorate General called Connect, which is for communications, networking, technology, and content. Next to him, we have Mr. Ingmar Vali, who's head of the court register in Estonia and has 10 years of experience in IT and e-governance, and we'll be looking forward to hearing about the famous e-Estonian experience. And last but not least, Ms. Ruta Petionkinaite, who is head of point of single contact for services and products at Enterprise Lithuania, which promotes business and enterprise here. And we will then hear about what Enterprise Lithuania is doing to promote the zero paper ideal in Lithuania. But so why don't we start with you, Ingmar, if you don't mind. E-Estonia is a phrase made famous by the government of your country, and as we all have heard, it has done quite well in reducing paperwork and making the technology available for solutions to be found in the government. How did we get to Estonia? How did Estonia make it happen? What was special about the case?
Yes. Hello. Well, thank you for the question. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, very good. Well, I have to say that there was a huge amount of will, especially the will after the Soviet Union. Everybody wanted to do some changes, something better and better and better and better. Well, at first we were thinking that it's one change. We will change, then everything will be good. But the changes kept coming and coming and coming, and the whole government was focusing on technology, how to use technology in running a country. And especially Estonia is a small country. There is not many people who you can employ, especially for the government. So we need to keep the government sector very thin. And in order to do that, we need to use some methods. And internet, technology, computers, it's just the thing that we can use. Therefore, one government came, the next one came. Everybody, all of them had this focus on using technology and improve the e-government, improve the government service in general.
I remember when our respective countries were going through this transition following the fall of the Soviet Union, there were a lot of remarks about the youthfulness of the Estonian government, that during that transition, a lot of young people came into relatively high-ranking positions there. Did that have an impact? Was it obvious to everyone across the age spectrum that e-solutions are the way to address these problems?
I guess that had something to do with it. Yes, young people try to use some new technologies, and they're more keen to use these technologies and new way of thinking, etc. I agree that something had to do with that.
But is it now recognized across the age spectrum, or do you still see some sort of a divide? Are there divides? Do older people use the services as willingly as young people? Are they as much proponents of the zero paper ideal?
I think it has improved a lot, especially due to internet banking, DAX declarations, and now other e-government services that are now in place. So everybody is using those. And even if I've heard the stories in the beginning that someone was too scared of using ATM machines, now everybody using those as well. Like, you don't take out the money and go take it back to the bank. Those were the stories in the beginning. It's the same thing with IT, with information technology, that people are starting to use those. Now even elderly people are doing voting in the internet, because it's easier to do it from your home. Maybe your grandkids can help you to set up the computer as a voting machine and help to make your vote. So it's with the help of younger people, older people can use the service as well.
That's remarkable. So you're actually promoting some communication between the generations this way. It's very nice to hear. How close is Estonia to zero paper on a scale of 1 to 10? Let's say 10 being, well, let's make 0 be 0. How close are we to 0? Are you at 1 or at 2 or at 3?
Well, it's a very, very good question, very hard question, because people are still used to use papers. They want to use papers. But at some stages, we have managed to put it to the 0. For example, company registration in Estonia, the process to start a company, you can do it over the internet. 0 paper.
0 paper.
0 paper. Some services are 0 paper, but there are some services that still require some paper, as our former prime minister told that you still need to take paper abroad, etc., etc. So we need to keep those paper services available still.
Was there any obstruction from the notary industry, which seems to thrive on stamping things and certifying things? And if you go to an electronic certification format, what do you do with your notaries then?
Well, notaries are a very big part of Estonian government, helping the government, like real estate transaction, helping to formalize, merge companies, split companies, etc., doing these complicated things, and also used as a good service for citizens to understand things a little bit better. So what happens now is that government is giving out those services for the notaries, so that notaries can offer this service on behalf of a government, issuing different certificates from land registries, from business registries, etc., etc., etc. So the notaries are quite well in Estonia at the moment.
Okay. Let's move south to our own country, to Lithuania. I'm a Lithuanian American, as many of you know, and I moved here 4 years ago, and I've seen some very nice examples of e-governance solutions within the Lithuanian government, but I've also seen some bottlenecks. Ruta, you must come into contact with both cases. How do you evaluate Lithuania's progress? What are businesses saying to you as part of Enterprise Lithuania about how close we are to 0 paper, and how close do we need to be?
Hello again. Thank you for the question. Well, actually, it's really very interesting topic to discuss today. And as a colleague from Estonia said, that it is hard to answer how close we are to the 0 paper thing. And well, I would like to promote Lithuania a little bit, actually. And Lithuania is really not so far behind all those developed countries as in terms of e-government and electronic services. Really today we have more than 530 public administrative services transferred online, and they are all reachable through one platform.
Is that a lot, 530? I have no idea what the total amount would be of these.
I would say that almost all of the public administrative services are already online. Well, the question is that, and what I wanted to discuss a little bit more today is, are those services really smart enough to satisfy today's needs?
Good question. Yes.
And you know, in this previous panel, the panelists discussed about smart living and smart cities, and how smart we are today and how smart we are going to be tomorrow. So the very important thing is that, are those services, you know, how to say, smart enough that we're creating, because we're creating them today, and they will be, customers will be able to use them only after 2 or 3 years. So, you know, that's the challenge. But in terms of Lithuania's e-services, as I mentioned, well, we really have almost all of them already online, and I think that we are looking at the next generation, and now it's very important to integrate all of them. So we will be talking not only about electronization of public services, but about uniting them into integrated e-services,
And
next generation
And
e-services.
this is a very good point, I think, and especially in the previous panel we talked about how just because you deploy technology doesn't mean you're doing something in a smart way. The technology could be just as or even more confusing than the paperwork, which then creates new barriers that we'd like to avoid. So who is working on this? Because I do notice also my experience in interacting with the Lithuanian government, various agencies, everybody's solutions look a little bit different. Some of the user friendliness is lacking. Even in some cases, I needed a live person to show me how to get through some of the online things, which presumably, ideally, we would all be able to do ourselves with some online assistance. So who in the Lithuanian government is doing that, and how is that being discussed? You mentioned there's an attempt to unify or maybe make them more consistent, these e-services.
Well, of course, the main driver is the government, the government solutions through the ministries, of course. The Ministry of Transportation is a very big driver of those next generation e-services. Of course, I represent Point of Single Contact in Lithuania. We really try to help businesses to find all the information and to all the information on how to do business in Lithuania, and of course we provide various procedures, and we create those services and we put them online in order businesses would, could not only find the information, but they could
Use it properly?
Use those services through the one-stop shop, I would say that, lack of words.
Right.
So just if I can come
Please.
back a little bit to what I mentioned before, many governments in the European Union really are doing pretty well in terms of e-government and e-services, but there is a very interesting number. 38% in European Union are non-believers. They don't use public administrative services, and they're not planning to do so anytime soon.
You mean online?
Online.
Okay.
38%. And I think it's a very big number. And why is this number so big? Because, many governments, they state that they have everything online. They state that we have zero paper in our country. But when a customer tries this online, he sees that he still needs to do a lot of paperwork. He still needs to fill in forms. Nevertheless, that all the information is already collected from certain institution.
Right.
There is no data collection. There is no data exchange between institutions in various countries. So I think that's why a lot of customers, a lot of citizens or businesses, they just don't want to use it because it's not so easy as governments state. So, yeah, we really need to work on the quality of those e-services.
So basically interagency data sharing in order to make this more user-friendly, and
Yes.
also the interface so that people would understand and be able to complete the online forms and other interactions smoothly.
Exactly. As for the interface, just 1 minute, 73% of public services websites do not have the mobile-friendly interface, and we're living in the mobile telephones today.
Absolutely.
We should think mobile, and
these operating systems are migrating to
Yes.
other devices too now.
Yes, exactly.
Dehan, you have experience working with governments on these sorts of issues. Your company, I'm sure, provides solutions. How's that been? Are governments open and welcoming? Are they engaging and using your advice?
Good question. It really depends on the government. But I'd like to make some disruptive remarks now.
Please.
I'm the only one person on this panel that is actually using the paper, and I have a paper in front of me here. And why I say that, going paperless does not necessarily mean being without a paper, you know. We go paperless in the government scenarios, not because we want to abolish paper. It is just that in the environment where you have paper, that environment is not automated. It's a manual environment, and therefore you are not effective, you're not efficient. The information technology environment has one core attribute, which is being automated. And therefore, this is the reason why we go there. So we abandon paper as a sub-effect of this automation desire that will actually help us be more productive, right? You know, during the certain meetings, I am more productive if I bring my notebook. Because it, depending on who the person on the other side is, I leave the better impression than bringing my computer and typing and making noise in front of that person's face. So I'm actually more productive, I give better impression, right? And therefore, I'm more successful in my work. Also, I don't want to forget the handwriting. I practice both Cyrillic and Latin, and I enjoy that. So I can say, over the last, 10, 15 years in my company, I really was paperless. But then a year ago, I actually decided to bring my notebook and have effective meetings. But again, it's about efficiency. Now, in the government or in the e-government environment or serving citizens environment, information technology definitely speeds up, increase efficiencies and effectiveness. And you know, in Microsoft, we like to say that we live in this, we call it cloud-first, mobile-first world, right? And it's that slogan is completely aligned to the Zero Paper Challenge, because mobile-first world really means that we as citizens, as businesses, as employees, consumers, we use the variety of devices that are available today to access any information, anytime, and again on any device. And it has the potential to extremely increase the quality of our lives, because we truly have the information in our fingertips. Why? Because we are connected all the time. We have devices that access that information, and we can instantly make decisions that are critical to the quality of our life and the business in order to be more effective in our day-to-day life, right? So that's why, as an outcome of this scenario, we don't use paper anymore. But I would like to go a step further. With the governments, we also position this cloud-first world, right? As much as we want not to cut the trees in order not to use the paper, at the same time, we don't want to create the electronic garbage, right? So this is why with the latest technologies like cloud computing, we offer the governments and the businesses across the globe hardware-less environment, or for that matter, serverless environment, not only paperless, but serverless environment. You know, all of the processing, all of the line of business processing, record management, that happens somewhere in the cloud, somewhere in the data centers, right? We don't need to provide that investment anymore into the real estate, into the hardware, into, you know, air conditioners that are going to cool those servers and things like that, right? So that's basically one giant step forward. On the top of paperless, we go serverless, in order to really increase efficiency and decrease the pollution, whatever the pollution is.
Yeah. On a technical and logical level, sounds really good. As you mentioned, there are psychological aspects. You bring a notebook, you jot things down by hand. We know this. We're talking to someone and jotting things down into a notebook. It's perceived as more thoughtful than if we were entering the exact same notes into a mobile device or in a tablet or a computer. So there are psychological as well as technological effects. So coming to the notion of storage of important information in clouds. A cloud to a lot of people in a vernacular sense sounds like something very fuzzy. We're not sure where this data is going. It's going into a cloud. What is that cloud? Where is that cloud? Well, it's not really anywhere that we can tell. Do you run into these problems when you're pitching these solutions that people say, well, I don't know if I'd maybe prefer if my data were in a file, in a cabinet, in an office, in a building that I can see once in a while driving past, as opposed to God knows where?
I'll draw a parallel from the scenario of some 200 years ago. There was a scientist called Thomas Edison. He's the guy who electrified New York City by putting the direct current power generator into the basement of every single building in Manhattan. And everybody felt really good. I have the power generator in my basement. I control it. I know there's going to be power as long as I have enough coil or oil or whatever. Then there was a famous scientist from my region, and his name was Nikola Tesla. He came and said, I don't care where the electric power generator is. I'm just going to put it on Niagara Falls. And nobody from the consumers would care where the electricity is coming from. I need to generate the trust in that electric power plant in order to produce the power to the consumers. And then he really used alternative current because it can be transmitted over the long distances in order to really facilitate the distribution of the energy. So the same is with the cloud computing. Instead of having servers in the basement of your local company, it's somewhere in not Niagara Falls, but in Dublin, in Amsterdam, in Tennessee, somewhere in the deserts of North America or whatever. Now, yeah, the data is there. It's in the cloud. And obviously, the question that consumers have is, how do I feel about this? But it is my business as Microsoft. It's Google business. It's Amazon's business. If that data or the provider goes down, we are out of business. So today, I always use the opportunity to say, your data is more secure in the cloud than in your building. It doesn't ring the bell, but the statistic shows that. Because the prescriptive guidance that we as company give to our customers, how to save their data and run their IT systems, they follow that with the lag of a day, 2, or a week. Hacker can penetrate the environment of my customer today, and that because he didn't deploy that prescriptive guidance that I issued today, and he will find out about that within a week or 2 maybe. But that doesn't happen in our clouds because all of these companies that I mentioned, they have people dedicated for data protection, data security, data privacy, compliance, and transparency, right? This is our commitment that used to be a great story until 6 months ago. Now it's not only a great story anymore because statistics shows that data is more secure in the cloud than on premises.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Andrea, the European Commission's role in all of this. On the one hand, all of us are hoping that something will be done at the European level to encourage and promote these types of processes. On the other hand, we all know the concerns, the privacy concerns, data storage, interoperability. How do you address these issues in your work?
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here and to contribute to the discussion. I've heard many keywords that are very, very good, and as an engineer, I cannot resist to start from the last opportunity, because of course, what was put forward as the metaphor for energy works as long as the resilience is there. And of course, the resilience is one of the aspects which indeed the cloud is contributing, because a lot of time we focus on the security, but the resilience part, in particular for energy, we have seen, because in particular in the US, we have seen very many crises. I remember in the early 2000s, the crisis in California, where indeed the resilience wasn't really up to the challenge of having a distributed generation and a market really bidding for different, I would say, use of the energy. But anyway,
speaking about the energy crisis.
Energy crisis in early 2000 in California. And in those days, I was doing that type of job. This is why I know about. And now I'm leading a team of lawyers as an engineer, what engineers could do, lead a team of lawyers. But actually, what I'm doing is very much linked to what was said before. The team that I'm leading is the team that is responsible for the European regulation on electronic identification and trust services. So it's about mutual recognition, it's about convenience, it's about trust, it's about seamless. Why I'm saying all this? Because paperless, of course, has got aspect of efficiency, but also has got aspect also of convenience in relation to what is, for instance, the higher transparency that you have on a process. When the digital signature was first introduced in a big country like Italy, I'm Italian, so I can speak about this, in '97 by Minister Bassanini, it wasn't because technology was good, but because it was the only way in which you can ensure that public administration could be digitized. Why? Because, if you do establish the principle that paper document is equivalent, or an electronic document is equivalent to a paper document, you have to introduce some sort of, safeguards to make sure that the electronic documents would not be, I would say, tampered or could be falsified or whatever. And that is where how digital signature, not electronic signature, was introduced. Of course, this was '96. My country is as digitized as Estonia? No. Why? Because the issue is the seamless experience. If I have a public administration which is working paperless, but the society is not working paperless, then of course nothing is happening. And actually I must say that in my country it was actually the other way around. You can do things hotspot. We have the first city, I think the city of Bologna, city of Brescia, they had electronic means to access certificates in the late 80s. But then, it remains a spot. Why? Because there was not the process of rolling out the technology, the digital, across society. And this is what we want to enable with, I would say, the regulation at the European level, because it's about cross-border. It's about cross-border recognition. What Vice President Ansip talked about, electronic identification means, this is the ADAS regulation, which is in force, which is applicable, and it will be imposing on member states the recognition cross-border as of the 29th of September 2018. However, as of the 29th of September of this year, so a few weeks ago, member states can already start applying the regulation on voluntary basis. Now, this gives me the opportunity to talk about voluntary and compulsory. And I'll give you an example. Digital signature, in many countries, it has been introduced, with the Directive 99. And then, associated to this, there were other trust services which emerged, like electronic register delivery services. In my country, this was introduced as an obligation for private sector to use it when interchanging documents with public administration. So it was an imposition on private sector in order to make sure that the public sector will work more efficiently, will have processes that are streamlined, it will be automated, as Dejan just said, and all the rest of it. What is the effect? That because all the businesses do have electronic registered delivery services, which is certified, which means in the digital, carry the same legal value as a registered surface carrier that is shipped to you by a postman, then of course, I mean, if I'm a business and I have to do business with you, I send you a registered delivery service. Why? Because I mean, the incremental cost is zero. What is the effect of this? Today, in my country, the business of electronic registered delivery services is higher in terms of money revenue than electronic signature. The use is so integrated. Why? Because you can think of retail credit, for instance. You do something in the shop, you ask for some money, and all the processes are automated. You receive even the notification by registered electronic delivery at home, and that is a proof that you have received what you were meant to receive. So in other countries, where the same process has been introduced on a voluntary basis, the take-up didn't happen. Just because the attitude to change is not something that is inherent in the spirit of organization people. Perhaps the more, I would say, looking forward type of people in the organization, but it's not, I would say, widespread. So all this is what we want to unlock with EIDAS, where we talk about, indeed, we set the minimal framework for cross-border recognition to reduce the risk of legal challenges. Because, I mean, as it was said this morning by Vice President Ansip, why, if in two countries that have 100% digital handling of something, the example he made is prescription, at the national level, why once I go in another country, I need to produce the paper? That is because of the legal challenge. And believe it or not, in the EIDAS regulation, it's the first time ever in European legislation that we introduce the non-discrimination principle for electronic document cross-border. You know, I'm an engineer. When I discovered that at the European level we didn't have a definition of online service, legally speaking, or not even recognition cross-border of electronic documents. You know, I was terrified. In the EIDAS regulation, we make this. So an electronic document cannot be denied, I would say, in court, which means that in society should be accepted if law allows. Then, of course, just because it's an electronic form, which means the e-prescription could be served as an electronic document. Now, in order to do this, you have to have the interoperability infrastructure in place, which means that the legal framework is nice, we are all good guys, but we have to make it happen. And the Commission is actually making this with the member states, leveraging the very huge investment that the member states have done since the 2007-2008 period in projects like Stork, SPOX, PEPLs, which have demonstrated that interoperability is possible, drawing and building on the diversity at the national level of the solution. We are doing this for electronic identity. The first realization, or I would say the first version of the system compatible with EIDAS is going to be made available to member states by the end of this year. So ideally, if member states would like to do it, as of early next year, they can apply EIDAS regulation on a voluntary basis. Is this a dream? Not really. I know that Estonia and Finland do recognize electronic identification means. I can open, if I were a Finnish company in Estonia, using my ID without going to Tallinn. And this is, you know, there. And we have countries like Austria, which is recognizing on the basis of qualified electronic signature identification from 10 or 11 countries. Today, you can open a bank account from Austria to Slovenia, meeting all the requirements which are associated, for instance, to the Anti-Money Laundering Directive, which means in-person identification of the client before I get a bank account open for the client. And this is what EIDAS is going to do, because if we don't go cross-sector, if we just focus on public administration, we will fail. And this is why I think that, you know, our effort in these days is the one of making exactly what Vice President Ansip said. Electronic identification is a good opportunity for all the sector where digital is the key to success. Banking, anti-money laundering, you have to identify the person. Sorry, if I can rely on trusted credentials, which are provided to me, supplied to me, which carries the legal value of having identified the person which is serving the credential in line with what is the Anti-Money Laundering Directive, I'm discharging my responsibility, and even more importantly, I'm cutting the cost of having all the papers that I have to file to be securely saved somewhere in a safe with all the security that goes behind. So that is what we do.
Clearly, a very enthusiastic, optimistic view of things, and you're a very articulate spokesperson for these various changes that need to be made. But how far along are we, and where are the bottlenecks? What are the obstacles? Why is this still in process if it began so many years ago?
It became, because indeed we do have 28 different jurisdictions, 28 different cultures. I think it was Dejan who said it this morning, and we have to respect them as long as they don't make the system inefficient. And this is why we didn't start in 2008. Actually, to be even clearer, in the context of electronic government, the first discussion between member states were tabled as early as 2004. Because of course, if you go for e-government everywhere and you overlook the aspect of cross-border, it's like say, oh, you do it nationally, and then so what?
No, fair enough.
And the decision was, don't focus on what is going to be the legal framework that may unlock the use of. No, forget about this. Let's see whether we can find technical solutions which will take on, will build on the differences, because we have technical systems which are different. In Estonia, my Estonian colleague in Brussels voted using the mobile. In my country, I can't do it in that way. There are countries where they are banning the electronic voting today for political election because they invoke national security concern. All these should be respected, but once we have demonstrated under the STOR process project, which ended in 2012, and now the STOR 2 is coming to an end, that the interoperability is possible, because what you need to do is just to transact the credentials for which the level of assurance is benchmarked against agreed set of criteria, so that I know that what I'm receiving is good quality. It's like the bio product. You know, I receive something that is bio, not just because you claim that it's bio, but because there is some evidence that it's bio. And the same was there. So after all this process, at the end of the project to STORC, we tabled the legal framework, which has upgraded the trust service, the electronic signature legal framework of 1999, and complemented it, introducing the mutual recognition of electronic identification means, the legal validity of timestamps, electronic sales, electronic registered delivery services, electronic document, cross-border. Because at the national level, you can do what you like, I suppose.
Back to the national level, I saw, Ruta, you were raising your hand.
I was raising my hand, but I think that we heard the comment actually. I just wanted to add some numbers in terms of this cross-border problem. Because only in Europe today, only 57% of the public services are available to cross-border users, and only 41% to other EU citizens across the border. So it's really, you know, the problem, and we are trying to create this digital single market, and this problem of mutual recognition of
interoperability.
Electronic signature is a problem. And just to add that Lithuania was a pilot country, and we were in this project STORC 1 and STORC 2, so we're really waiting for some good results in terms of this.
Okay, let me follow up on this. Everyone's being very polite and not pointing fingers at anybody else as being a roadblock, but we really need to, I think, dig into this and find out what are the obstacles. So you said Lithuania was a pilot. Is everyone on board with this? Are all the member states moving forward, or are some of them really dragging their feet, and is this causing everything to slow down?
Well, it's really hard to answer this question because all the countries have, you know, different initiatives, different understandings. Some of them have digital first, then e.government. The others have gov.2, instead of just going digital altogether. And well, I think it's you know, it's not only in separate hands. It has to be not just a strategy. It has to be, you know, leadership at the highest levels, and you know, the political support and.
Ingmar.
Well, it's when you start something from the scratch or from behind. It's very easy to look in front of you and see what have others done and to learn from the mistakes. So as did Estonia in the beginning, saying that we can see what are the mistakes and we can easily avoid them. But when you come to a point when there is nothing ahead of you, you're like a pioneer in this field. Like in 2009, when we first started this cooperation project with Portugal, Estonia, Finland to accept foreign signatures, electronic signatures from abroad. And we made it, technically we made it. We even made it legally, although they said it was impossible, both technically and legally, and vice versa. But we made it, and today we have about 2,000 companies in Estonia started with the Finnish ID card. So basically, technically it already works. Although the solution that we built was a pilot and it's not scalable in large scale, but the concept is there. So I urge to see the things that have already been done and reuse as much as possible, because we do not reuse things in Europe. Everybody has it. It's my way. I'm doing. It's totally different that you have done. We're doing my way, and this is a thing that we need to learn, that reuse things.
Andrea, did you have a remark? And then we'll come to Dan. And just so we're watching the clock, we have about 10 minutes left, so we will keep it brief so that we leave some time for questions.
Just to complement, he's talking about electronic signature, 2009, the directive of 99, and the directive is internal market directive. But because of the lack of trust on one element that is key under the electronic signature directive, that is the fact that electronic signature is a means of authentication of people, which means it should serve to identify Andrea Servide as such. Cross-border doesn't work unless you operationally make it happen. And there is where, indeed, in the discussion under EIDAS, the part on cross-border recognition was very much focused on how we build trust. Because if you don't build the trust between the jurisdiction, you will never be able to get interoperability. If there is trust, then it goes quickly. And this is why we are there, and the timeline is very aggressive. Let's not forget, to give you an example, the rollout of electronic driving license. The timeline agreed by the co-legislator is 2033.
Oh.
Okay, is in the law. We have electronic identification, mutual recognition in place at the latest by 29th of September 2018 on voluntary basis, because we may like indeed that countries like Estonia or the other, Austria or the others, Portugal or whatever, to go fast as of today, as we speak. So I think that is important, is the trust. Once you have the trust, then everything goes. But the trust is in full respect of the diversity.
Very good. Back to psychological issues. Dehan.
In my opinion, one of the major obstacles against this zero paper challenge is fear of change. And fear of change at the civil servant level that we see in a lot of countries. Don't get me wrong, I have a lot of respect for the civil servant job. Like, you know, it's really nice to be in the situation to serve your country and the citizens as well. But quite often I hear from the senior civil servants the following statements: we have always done things this way. Why do we need to change? We have always done things this way because it's by this regulation, that law, that regulation, and so on. And when you face that kind of challenge, it's extremely time-consuming to change it. And the best pill for that is the highest senior level political leadership from the highest government official in a country. Is it the prime minister, like in case of United Kingdom, when Tony Blair at the beginning of 2001 declared that within next 2 to 3 years, 5% of the electronic of the services have to be electronic. You know, 5% is a big leapfrog within a year or 2 years. Or is it Estonian President Ilves, who, as I said, like, you know, I enjoy talking to this gentleman about the public key infrastructure and digital certificates. If only I can have the same topics with the presidents of the Balkan countries. That's impossible. It's politics on their agenda, right? So when you have that kind of political leadership, then it is not that difficult to implement the change, because they drive the composition of the new laws, the discussion of those new laws and regulations in the parliament. Parliament ratifies, and then it's done. It has to be implemented, because this is how the country works, okay? Now, we spoke about interoperability as well, and it's crucial in the cross-border scenarios, simply because of different 28 countries, cultures, and so on. But, you know, there is also an obstacle in those scenarios, because, you know, I respect the public procurement that is always present at the public sector level in all of the European countries. But I also have to say that the outcome of the public procurement has always been the desire for the level playing field. And the level playing field directed all of our countries to end up with every single piece of technology, both from the hardware and software perspective, starting 1950, whatever. You have mainframes running COBOL from many, many countries, right? So, what's my point here? Interoperability needs to exist to connect the systems between the countries, but let's not misuse interoperability in order to integrate the old systems. That's why I love the no legacy policy that exists, first in Estonia and then in other Baltic countries, where after a certain number of years, the technology is gone, right? And then interoperability is used just for interconnection of the countries, not for the plumbing between the newest and oldest technologies.
Thank you very much. We have an amazing panel, and I love it when people have things to say. We do want to let the audience in on the discussion as well, and we don't have a lot of time. Instead of taking questions individually, I would like to take 3 at once, and then the panel can choose which ones it wants to address in what order. So you, sir, please, your question, and let's try to keep it as brief as possible. Or let me put it this way, succinct.
Only Infobaltas.
We can hear you.
Yeah. Infobalt Lithuania. Only some small comments, crazy, I apologize, on the presentation. I like the most the last words that were said, that really political will really is the most and key important factor to bring really us from the papers to the paperless world. You know, don't far ago, we have so very famous Lisbon strategy, yes? It was left on the paper, and we are afraid that the digital single market strategy will be left on the paper. But
do you have a question?
Yes, I would like to have from you the comments. You know, when we have the political will, it's wonderful. Now, after that, we are going to the kitchen, to those structures who are responsible for the installation of all these nice things that we are waiting. My understanding...
Your question, sir, please.
My understanding is that these structures are afraid that they will lose their jobs. And that's why, what do you think? Maybe it is sense on the Europe level to say all e-services must go on the private-public partnership to the private structures to decrease the budget, but really to have these services.
Okay, thank you, sir. We're going to have to give the microphone to 1 or 2 more people from the audience. I saw some hands on this side. You, sir? And let's be succinct. We have 3 minutes on the clock.
Taras Besnikas, also Infobalt Association. Really, I can comment to your obstacles about paperless office by taking one example. I'm sometimes consulting European countries transferring the court system to electronic form. And usually when they try to establish paperless court system, delivering court participant to the court, the initial effect is immediate increase of printing. It's exactly opposite they expected. And that's very clear. Why? Because if you have parties that delivering to the court some materials electronically, and there are some parties that are not participants electronically, the court has a duty to print that because of the principle access to justice. It's universal principle, access to justice, and the court cannot refuse it and cannot force. Of course, court can make rules, and that's
Sir,
that's
well. If you would bring your question to a close,
sorry, yeah.
because we have 1 minute
That's
and 30 seconds.
Main principle. That's of course this effect occurs when we have not monogenic system. That's a divided system.
Thank you.
And that's
Sir,
a question
I'm sorry.
about political will.
I will have to interrupt now and give it to the panel in the very few seconds remaining. Who would like to chime in? Ingmar.
Yes, I just wanted to tell you one story very quickly, that when we made these changes, transforming from the paper to the electronic, I used to tell to the listeners and to the organizations that don't worry, you will not lose your jobs, because it will take so long time to go from paper to electronic, and there are still more jobs to do, and we want to make this service more efficient. It means that there will be no job losses. But now I cannot tell it anymore, because yesterday Minister of Justice in Estonia announced that 80 people from this organization will be laid off because of the new technology, and there is no need to have. And moreover, the rest of the 50% that was staying in this organization, their salaries will be raised, like doubled. So this means that these people are satisfied who are in the job, but who are not, they are not very satisfied. But the cost comes back from the offices, actually, because the second change was that we can close down those offices, because all the services are in the electronic world, and there is no need to have counter services nor offices. So now the users are starting to work from the home because of the technology. But in that sense, we need to change the way of thinking, and we need to learn that also to all the organizations, saying that we are offering a service for our customers, citizens, entrepreneurs, and the efficiency has to be there for them. And many years when we made this from paper to electronic, we could not see the efficiency or the benefit or profit from the government side, but we see it from the investor side, from the citizen side. But we need to change the way of thinking that few jobs lost in that sense is a overall better service for the citizens and for the investors. Thank you very much. Thank you to the panel. Please join me in thanking the panel. We are out of time. It's a good discussion. If there is a willingness to continue it, to carry it on, please approach them individually if you'd like. As we see, this is a very complex issue. We heard, but the one thing that I hear everyone reinforcing is the need for leadership. Above everything else, we can have technical solutions, legal solutions, but someone needs to lead us. I recognize all of you as leaders in that field, and it's been a pleasure to moderate your panel. I'm Darius Udrys. Please join us for lunch in hall number 3. VIPs will be treated on the balcony.